gravel crunched under the tires of my 15-year-old pickup truck, a sound that was starkly out of place in the whisper-quiet cobblestone driveway of Livray. This was the kind of restaurant where the valet looked at my truck not with disdain, but with genuine confusion, as if I had accidentally driven a tractor into an art gallery. I handed him the keys. "She just needs a little space. Don't mind the paint. I am Samuel Harding, to the world, or at least the small part of it that reads Commodities Reports. I am the founder and CEO of Atlas Materials, one of the largest and most advanced sustainable materials and recycling firms in the country. We don't just manage trash, as some put it. We re-engineer it. We turn mountains of waste into advanced polymers, composites, and building materials. It's a dirty, gritty, and astonishingly profitable business. But to my daughter, Elena, I was just Dad. And lately, that title felt like an apology. Inside, she was already at the table, sitting next to him. Julian, he was all polished teeth, a $900 haircut, and the effortless arrogance of a man who had never once in his life had dirt under his fingernails. He stood, his suit immaculate, and gave me a handshake that felt more like a delicate exchange of objects than a greeting. "Samuel, great to finally meet you," he said, his voice booming slightly too loud. "Elena has told me so much about you." "Good to meet you, Julian." We sat. The dinner was a blur of tiny portions on massive plates. Julian, who ran some kind of fintech startup, spoke endlessly about disruption, market synergy, and investment rounds. He then turned his bright, empty gaze to me. "And Elena tells me you're in sanitation? Waste management?" "Something like that," I said, sipping my water. "We process recycled materials." Julian chuckled, a dry, dismissive sound. "Well, someone's got to take out the garbage, right?" "Noble work, truly. I'm sure it keeps you busy." Elena flinched, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. She shot me a look, a silent plea. "Please, Dad, don't." I just smiled. "It's a living." "I'm sure it is," Julian said, patting her hand, "but you won't have to worry about that world much longer, my love. We're moving up." He looked at me. "I'm sure you understand, Samuel. Different worlds." The call came 2 nights later. Elena. Her voice was small, choked with tears. "Dad, about the wedding." "What is it, sweetheart?" "It's just Julian's mother, Eleanor. She's very particular about the guests, about appearances." I waited, the silence on the line stretching, heavy and cold. "Dad, I'm just so embarrassed," she finally whispered, and the word hit me harder than any physical blow. "He and his mother, they just don't get it. They think you're just a garbage man. Can you just, for me, can you just not talk about the business? Can you just be quiet, please? I just want this one day to be perfect." "Quiet," I repeated. The word tasted like ash. I had built an empire from the scrap heap so that this girl, my daughter, would never have to know a single day of want. And now she was asking me to hide it because it wasn't the right kind of empire. "I'll be quiet, Elena. Whatever you need." The next month, I was invited to a pre-wedding charity gala hosted by Julian's family. My invitation arrived in a plain white envelope, not the embossed calligraphed version I saw on their social media. When I arrived, a coordinator scanned my ticket and pointed. You'll be in the mezzanine lounge, sir. Standing room. The main ballroom is reserved for our patrons. I stood in the shadows of an upstairs balcony next to a service bar, looking down as Julian and Elena mingled with the city's elite. At one point, Julian's mother, Eleanor, spotted me. She marched over, her face a mask of polite condescension. "Oh, hello. You're Elena's father, aren't you?" she said. "I'm so glad you could make it." She looked at my simple, dark blue suit. "You know, the catering staff is just slammed tonight. Would you be a dear and help them clear some of these glasses from the ledge? It's becoming such an eyesore." She mistook me for a waiter. I looked at her, then at the empty glasses. I picked one up. Of course, anything to help. From across the ballroom, I saw Julian watch the exchange. He didn't intervene. He didn't correct her. He just smirked, took a sip of his champagne, and turned Elena away. That night, I did something I rarely do. I called my chief financial officer. "Arthur," I said, "I need you to run a background check. A man named Julian Thorne, his fintech company. I want to know everything." The report came back 48 hours later, and it was worse than I thought. Julian's startup was a house of cards, bleeding money and drowning in debt. But one detail made my blood run cold. To secure his latest round of bridge funding, Julian had been lying to his investors. He'd been claiming a strategic partnership was in the works with Atlas Materials, my company, to handle the massive e-waste stream from his green finance platform. He was using my name, the very name his fiancée was ashamed of, to commit fraud. The day of the wedding arrived. It was held at a sprawling, historic estate, the kind of place that charged more for the view than I had paid for my first processing plant. I parked my truck myself, away from the glittering procession of Bentleys and Teslas. I found my seat, or rather, I was shown to it. It was not with the family. It was table 28, in the very back corner of the grand pavilion, partially obscured by a large speaker and a flapping tent wall that let in a draft of cold air. I watched Elena walk down the aisle. She was beautiful, a vision in white, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. The reception began. Speeches were made. Then Julian stood, glass in hand, beaming under the lights. "To my beautiful wife, Elena," he toasted, his voice amplified by the microphone. "She is everything to me, and to her family. Her wonderful, simple, down-to-earth father, Samuel." He gestured vaguely toward my corner. "It just goes to show, it doesn't matter where you come from. Even if you come from, well, the dump, you can still clean up nicely." A few of his friends laughed. Elena's face was pale, frozen in a smile. Julian's eyes scanned the crowd, and I saw them land on a man at the head table. I recognized him instantly. Marcus Thorne, the head of Green Future Ventures, one of the most powerful VCs in the sustainable tech world. A man Julian was desperate to impress. A man who, I knew from Arthur's report, Julian had been lying to. Emboldened by the alcohol and his audience, Julian strode from the head table, weaving his way back to me. The spotlight operator, confused, followed him. Suddenly, I was illuminated. "Sam, old man," Julian said, clapping me on the shoulder hard. "Thanks for coming. I know this is all a bit much for you, all these fancy people. Tell you what," he said, leaning in conspiratorially, his voice still carrying over the sound system. "I see you eyeing the exit. Why don't you head on out to the patio? It's a bit stuffy in here for a working man. Go on. We'll handle the elite part." He was dismissing me from my own daughter's wedding. "Julian." The voice cut through the room like a razor. It wasn't mine. Marcus Thorne, the VC, was on his feet, walking toward our table. His face was a mask of utter disbelief. Julian spun around, his face lighting up. "Mr. Thorne, so glad you could make it. I was just having a little chat with my new father-in-law." Marcus didn't even look at Julian. His eyes were locked on me. Samuel Harding. My God. He pushed past Julian and extended his hand to me. "I've been trying to get a meeting with you for 6 months. Your work on polymer chain recycling it's revolutionary. You are Atlas Materials." The pavilion went so quiet you could hear the ice melt in the glasses. I stood and shook his hand. "Marcus, a pleasure to see you. I didn't realize you'd be here." Julian's face had gone from smug to sheet white. You two know each other?" Marcus turned to Julian, his expression turning to ice. "Know him? This is Elena's father? You told me. You said her father was a small-time sanitation hauler you were helping modernize." That's a misunderstanding," Julian stammered. "A misunderstanding?" Marcus's voice was now dangerously low. "You used your supposed in with Atlas Materials to secure your last round of funding from us. You told us you had a partnership. You committed fraud." "No!" Julian shrieked, grabbing Elena's arm. "Elena, tell them. You didn't know. You thought he was just a garbage man too, right? Tell them." Elena, tears streaming down her face, looked at Julian's desperate, ugly expression. Then she looked at me, my simple suit, my calloused hands, my quiet dignity. She finally saw me. She ripped her arm out of Julian's grasp. "I knew who he was," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "I knew everything. I was just ashamed to admit I wasn't as good as him." She walked to my side. I looked at Julian, a man who had built his entire life on lies, now watching it crumble in real time. I felt no anger, only a profound, cold pity. "You see, Julian," I said, my voice calm and clear, carrying across the silent, staring room. "It's true. I do work with trash every single day of my life. But today is the first time I've ever felt like I was standing right next to it." I put my arm around my daughter, and together we walked out of the reception, leaving him alone in the spotlight, surrounded by the wreckage of his own making.